Welcome to everybody who's joining us here on site and online. My name is Kerli Lehe from Children's and Families Department and Ministry of Social Affairs, and I am moderating today's panel regarding ethical concepts and early detection in resolving cases. And so we have Andres Aru here from the Chancellor of Justice Office, Children's and Youth Legal Department Manager. We have Roger Kumm from North Prefecture, East Harju Division, Maria Pulak from Viimsi Regional Police, and Eetilisus Tiidus from School Psychologist Society, school psychologist. Welcome from me as well. So the Children's Protection Act states that everybody must immediately notify of a child in need, be it a relative, somebody just a stranger in the street, or a neighbor. And if we do not do this, then this is on our conscience. Why do I want to speak about it? Just a while ago, I went to Lootuse küla, the village of hope, and I met young people there whose life had led them to a dead end. And when they were sharing their stories, where their lives got started and how they ended up where they now are, and the Lootuse küla is their last straw, then I thought, where were the people who should have noticed at the right time? These stories started in childhood, and I will share them with you because these were simple things, really. But without anyone noticing, their lives got very complicated. One youth was overweight, felt bad about it, had no confidence, and was bullied in school. Up until 4th grade, the parent went to school to speak about it, but then gave up, and the bullying continued till the end of 9th grade. And by the 10th grade, this child had found friends in the street and had started using different substances. There was a young man whose parents got divorced when he was a teenager, 13, 14, and he was very talented in sports. By the time he was 16, 17, he had won high positions in Estonian national sports, and compared to other kids, he was ahead of others in his specialty. But by the time he was 20, he had buried a dozen friends and was in prison. So these are tragic stories. If they had had support, if the school had provided psychological assistance or counseling for the family, then these children would not have felt so alone in their struggles. And something else that's very widespread. At first glance, you might not think that it could be decisive in a downward spiral, but speech problems. Nobody noticed this problem. A child had difficulty reading, was left behind in studies. At one point, of course, did not want to go to school anymore, found friends in the street. And, well, you can figure out for yourselves what kind of friends these were. And so this child turned to drugs. So what I'm saying is that all of us play a big role as those who notice, take action, and cooperation, networking are vital. And this is what we are going to be discussing at length during today's panel. Cooperation holds great power, and these young people could have been brought back to the right track if they had had more support. But looking at the topics we are covering during our panel discussion, then first, let's start as a warm-up from the most memorable, inspiring moments in working with children. What are your highlights when you think back and say that, well, this was good, or you saw that your support, you noticing, led to something good? It can be something simple, whoever wants to begin. Something that made you feel that this is why I'm doing this work, that's why I work with children. It's a good question. As a school psychologist, this is the topic that really isn't very visible. We don't get much feedback. When things work out, then they work out, and we don't really get much positive feedback that, well, now things went well. On a daily basis, we don't get this feedback. It's the kind of work where you just do your work and you hope that things will work out. But there are certain highlights. For example, I have worked with some youth for 6 months, a year during the school year. I worked mostly in basic school, so up to 9th grade. And so this youth goes on to upper secondary school and comes back to me and says, my brother or sister has a similar problem. I know that you will be able to help them. And so that is really heartwarming that you've done something great. Thank you. And so the youth had this peace of mind and was able to recommend. So this is a potential person who will notice others. In general statistics, we see that fewer minors commit offenses, and the state has taken the right steps to improve the situation. I would say that in the first half of the day, we heard some numbers that are quite unpleasant. But as a representative of the police, we have a toolkit which, of course, could be bigger, more staffing, more initiative and more broad-based intervention that is timely, not after it's slightly too late. But I do see some rays of hope. So when we turn a blind eye, when something is already going on, it normalizes this behavior. And be it school, parents or peers, it all normalizes this, so I'm sure we'll discuss it. But when we speak about online issues, it's very difficult to combat. As a head of police, it's like speeding in the street. To a certain level, the society has normalized this plus 10 kilometers an hour. So it's very difficult to be this harsh police officer there. And that fine doesn't change anyone. Society needs to understand that the consequences are deadly and severe, like we saw the consequences of addiction. It destroys lives. So that's where we need the change. Notice immediately and respond adequately. You shouldn't overreact, but you shouldn't underreact either. But I do see some shift because statistically there is support. Yes, so you introduced the topic of prevention, and that is right. We often don't immediately see the outcome of prevention. It's long-term and it's not tangible and visible. So one generation will grow up before we see the impact of today's preventative work, and it will show in statistics with a delay, but it's good of you to mention it. Maria, would you like to add anything? Yes, two highlights from me. These are with me throughout my life and are related to minors who smoke. He used to be a youth police officer in central district of Tallinn, and we had an agreement with the Viru shopping center that there was a big problem of minors smoking around the shopping center, and we made an agreement that the security guards will intervene and hand these youth over to the police, and the police brought them to the youth police officers at the police department, and two youngsters ended up on my desk, so to say. One was 11 or 12, a boy, and I saw that he's been caught 3 times already for smoking, and then I look at the times. They're around 11 a.m. on school days. This boy is from Lasnamägi district. Why is he in the city center in the first place? And so I decided, at that time we had the juvenile committees, and I decided we need bigger intervention. I sent him to the juvenile committee. And the committee took it seriously, and later I found out that he was referred to a different school. So maybe this big intervention in his case was changing schools, because he wasn't going to school. A second highlight, again, a smoker next to Viru shopping center, a young girl, very beautiful, well-groomed, and she lied about her mother's information on the form. And I noticed it and asked her to come to the police station with her mother. I had to discuss the lying and also to give her prevention materials and health promotion materials from National Institute for Health Development. And the girl starts taking the materials, and I saw cut marks when her sleeve shifted upwards, and both arms all the way to the shoulder. There were no places left to make additional cuts. And of course, it was about harming herself. And then we intervened into the family problems and issues this girl was having, and she received support, the kind of support she needed, and her family relationships improved. She wasn't getting along with her parents, and grades had gone down, and some obligations were put on her that she did not want to fulfill, and not being at home and running around the streets with friends, things like that. So these were the highlights. And it's wonderful, Maria, that you have received feedback that these kids are fine now, and there was a positive change. The topics we're discussing today, so networking, yes, that is very important in helping children, and family relations, and working with parents. So these are things we are going to discuss. So thank you for this round. I think it was a nice introduction to the main topics. So Andres, let's start with you. How are children's and youth's rights guaranteed, especially in situations when they have risk behavior? So from the legislative perspective. Very good. I do have a story, so I can tie it to the answer, because this answers your question as well. I thought which example to give regarding positive experience. We have stories where a specific youth turns to us and we resolve their problem, that they get a support person, something like that. But when I think more systemically, then the system of dealing with minors who commit violations, this reform has been substantial, and it reflects our attitude. So earlier we had a legal act where we had a violation that we judge, and then we respond to the deed, and then we determine a measure of influence. And when the new concept was abandoned, then the new concept focused on the reasons behind the deeds. And I think this is a very important aspect for our discussion. When we speak about drug use or use of alcohol or tobacco, then usually this is the consequence and the reasons are elsewhere. And the positive experience I had was when we visited a closed children's facility, and the youngsters who've been there more than 3 months said that when we came, we tried and wanted to run away. We tried to run away every day. It's a closed facility, so it's like a prison. But after 3 months, they said that actually it's not too bad. The psychologist is pretty good here, and I can manage school quite well. So actually they understood that this is a place where people are trying to help them. It's not a place where they're being held captive. It's a place where people are trying to help them. So I think the reform has been the right step, that we support and help the youth who commit violations. So prevention is, of course, as important. And the main prevention is what? It's supporting family relations, noticing problems as early as possible, early detection, and trying to find useful things for them to do. So when they have enough activities, then they don't have time to hang out in a shopping center. So what the children and youth need are safe family relations, limits that to feel loved, cared for, and then actually things are good. So usually there are some deficiencies at home, but I guess that these youth need the routine and limits that the closed facility provided for them. Roger, moving forward, when do we need to bring in the police when there are cases of vaping in school or drug use? When should the school deal with it? And when should we use broad-based interventions? It's a good question, and schools have turned to us with this question repeatedly. My answer is the following. Police officers are always willing to deal with these issues, but I always ask teachers when I talk to teachers that what is my profession? Who did I train to become? Well, teachers are educated. They say that, well, you have trained to become a police officer. And when I ask them, then they usually are in the midst of their studies, or they have become teachers. So, and then I ask, who is able to deal with these issues the best? Those who have become teachers and know children and the process, or police officers who are good at catching criminals. So yes, you need to establish a dialogue with youth, and more I think that dealing with the primary problem, be it in the school environment or outside school, the environment the child is in, school, children, of course home, but if the parent is unable to help the child, then kindergarten, school, and then social worker and police officer. Networks are very important. The scope of the problem, what can the police provide? We see what this child is doing outside school in the street. The teacher knows what takes place in school, and the police doesn't know everything. The youth, the peers know much more than we do. So that's why the dialogue matters. First, to understand what it is, having a trusting relationship, but the police officer can contribute to what we have seen in the street, whether there have been any notifications, problems in the family, because often teachers don't know this. Sometimes they know more than the police officer. I don't want to categorize, but certain problems reach us regarding families. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence, alcohol abuse, or something else. Other horrible things. So we can contribute know-how, and then this network can decide on intervention measures. Who is best suited to do what? Because without knowing about the background system, it's complicated. Today we are discussing ethics as well. And when we look at this issue from the perspective of ethics, then we want to process personal data as packed as possible, so don't intervene too much. So not that everybody is trying to pull this child in their own direction, and it might be even a minor problem. And you don't want to pay too much attention to a minor issue and pull the child in all directions. But we need to work as a network. And first of all, we need to detect a problem. If the problem is in school, then the school needs to detect it. We can network in finding the solution. I have a question for Maria, but I just want to note that I see some questions in the online environment, and if you have any questions, then submit your questions. I'm going to ask Maria, how can police officers support the school regarding prevention? What is your role in working with the school to support the school and vice versa? Police and Border Guard Board no longer has this position of youth police officer. Now they are called regional police officers or district police officers, but we have distributed the tasks. So the district police officers who have the better skill set deal with youth. Police and Border Guard has stated this, and in practice, for as long as I have worked, every school has a liaison police officer, the former youth police officer for their district, their contact person, whom they can discuss different topics with. And since I'm a police officer, then I immediately start thinking substance abuse, then we think which substance, psychotropic, alcohol, cannabis, smoking, conflicts, mediation, crimes against property, and so we need to understand what is going on, and we have the toolkit. So I understand that when a school is struggling with a problem, then it's the district police officer who they should turn to and who is willing to discuss it. Yes, to discuss what is the proportional response. But it's a big question that if it's like smoking or vaping, which might seem like a minor issue, then what should we do? Should we ask for advice case by case or not? Or is it too minor? I think the school employees should first think what they can do and have done. Maybe they can resolve it in the school environment, then child protection, and then police. We have lots of work anyway, because we run raids, go to the street and find those who violate the law, and parents turn to us directly as well when they see when the child abuses cannabis, so they come to us and ask what they can do and what can be done. But cooperation meetings and just agreeing on certain cases and who to turn to and when for prevention. Yes, so when there is a concern, then they have the contacts and know that they can turn to. And the networking must be consistent, and then it's easier for the school to turn to the police officer. Annalisa, this question to you, I thought I would ask my own question, but this is a very good one and fits well to finish what Maria said. When we speak about addiction problems and being aware of them, then which preventative work is missing in schools? When I listen to the other panelists, then yes, schools have a lot of resource in the sense, well, not resource, but they have a lot of possibilities to deal with it on site, and the possibility to bring in many cooperation partners. Currently, the situation in schools is that there's high fluctuation from region to region, how much the school can do regarding prevention in the school, how much support personnel the school has, how many teachers. It's really uneven. Luckily, I work in a school where we have quite a big support team, and we can do a lot on site. We can educate teachers, invite cooperation partners, coordinate it, but there are schools where there is one support staff who wears all hats at one time, and so that means that there's a greater burden falling on the shoulders of cooperation partners to help with prevention and intervention. So I think there is no uniformity, and it's difficult to say what schools expect. I see that in society this topic has become quite a hot topic, and dentists now come and speak about vaping, police officers come and speak, and we're very thankful for it, and all the materials that are available online through the non-profit PEA that deals with mental health of youth, and also the National Institute for Health Development. And teachers use these materials in different subject classes. It's a big part of prevention. Not all teachers have the courage, and then the support staff needs to help them. But if the school doesn't have support staff, there's only one support specialist, then the external partners are used more. So come and give a lecture or something like that. It's really uneven. Maria, I just want to add a comment. I think it's fine that there are regional differences. I was a youth police officer in the Old Town region in Tallinn, and if you know the area, then in my work I've been exposed to the schools where the support network is very strong. But when I speak to my colleagues in other regions, districts, then I see that there's no school psychologist or there's a very little staffing, and then it's fine to contact the district police officer and discuss it, or to hand some cases over to the police, even minor cases, because you cannot deal with the workload, and that's fine. So I think the key word is know your cooperation partner and know what tools they have. I'd like to add, in my meetings with teachers, we have discussed that you need to make a distinction whether it's necessary to bring partners in or you are over-exaggerating. So you need to think about whether it's worth sort of amplifying it, or you can deal with it yourself. Do you have the skill set to deal with it? Then deal with it. So first you think what you can do, and when you feel that actually I need support, then ask for support. That's how simple it should be, but it's of course not that black and white. And often you want to hand it over to somebody else, and the police, I hope, has for a reason earned this trust. And statistics show that there is high trust in the police. But with youth, child protection has more information than the police. Police contacts always go to the child protection services. So I think social services should deal with issues before a police officer in a uniform steps in. That is why child protection services are operating. That's what they're there for. And the police, for example, doesn't have information about social intervention, but the social services have information about police interventions. We only see when there has been violence. Based on my work, So early support for families is what I deal with. And actually prevention should start from family through the right values and family relations. That's probably the most important thing. And community can also work with the school. And who's in the community? We are the community parents who can serve as a role model or keep children in hobby clubs and active. But we have quite many questions, and I'm going to choose some.
So it will be good to know what is your understanding of prevention, because prevention is seen often in different ways. Because some people think that this is maybe one thing, one day, and some others see it as a constant activity. Some believe that it starts from home, or somebody will come who will be a specialist who covers it. So do we have a common understanding and what is considered to be prevention at school actually does function? And maybe I'll start myself, and I would say that indeed, because I can see it in the local governments as well, because we don't always have the competency to assess what is prevention. If I have a lecture for the classroom, or I approach the National Institute for Health Development and I order a program which will cost the same, but it's been assessed and that we know what is the impact. Or because we know that the knowledge here is not exactly evenly spread, and we have to do more in order to support the specialists of our fields so that we can understand things the same way and that we will be able to contribute. Andres? To conclude the previous topic, what I wanted to say is that I support what was said by the police, that of course they'll come and assist once the help is asked. But if the first to notice is the school, then the schools should have their own specialists. So if there's not a psychologist, a speech therapist, other specialists, then the local government as a school owner has to provide this assistance. So the system cannot be built on the police compensating for the gaps, which is in the system of support specialists. And of course, if the trouble is there, the police comes and helps. But this is not how it should be set up, because the assistance should be available in all the schools. What is important is that every signal is followed by a reaction. So there is no signal which will go unnoticed, because the young person has found an adult to whom they've said something, and maybe this has been a huge effort for them to do so. I remember a story, it's not going to be long, but the brief summary is that young people, when they trust somebody and they disclose what the actual problem is, then this is a huge step for them. So they are waiting for this adult actually to do something. So you cannot really forward the issue to someone else, because if it goes unanswered or they're going to be sent to somebody else to deal with it, that means that they might not actually show up anymore. But regarding prevention, then I think the prevention is a much wider topic than concern of one specific child. So it could be also individual prevention, so this person will not commit any further infringement. But prevention really is that schools will have good relations with the parents from their first school day onwards. And so you have a good contact with the parents already then. And we train and support parents, we discuss important topics. So to prevent this kind of situation, that there might be some problems in this environment. Prevention also means that you have accessible hobby education for young people across Estonia, regardless if they live in a small place or big city, so they have things to do, and the transport has been organized so they can get to the exercise class and get home. So the local governments have a big role to play. I can say a few words about prevention, because prevention can be very expensive, but at the same time the most efficient, and it's underfinanced because you cannot really measure the outcome. So this was something which was mentioned, that the best cases are the ones which had the intervention right away, you never came back. So we don't know where this impact happened. Was it with us? Was it with home? But I believe that in this community, or in this environment where the kids live, this is where the prevention happens. So if you work on that, so I've asked this question as well. So if you talk about police at school, then I say that we should have more police available. But if you've seen police a couple of times, does it really impact you for speeding, even if you were caught and you were fined? So it doesn't really impact you. We can see that from real life, that this doesn't have an impact. So getting caught, nobody likes that. But this doesn't impact the behavior in the traffic. So it all starts from the attitude we have. So the same thing with young people. The moment you tolerate something or that normalize this behavior, that it seems to be okay because I was allowed to do so. So the same is true for school bullying. So if you were to pay attention and you think that, no, it's too small, I don't want to do this because it seems to be too complicated. So that means you normalize the situation and it will repeat itself. So even if you intervene and you think that this child or this teenager is talking back or shouting back or whatever, then regardless of the reaction, because reaction is defense, but they got the message, and this message has the biggest preventive impact, that this behavior is not okay, because this is not meant for the child who is the subject of the wrongful deed, but everybody understands this is not okay. So this is where this prevention really starts, so the parents understand it, and then the other students also understand this is not okay. Maria? I'll talk about the realities of prevention. Police, we are not working on prevention ourselves, that we usually deal with the aftermath. We have the enforcement function. I work in local government of Viimsi, and Viimsi rural municipality was part of the pilot project for restorative justice in the community. And I can see how complicated it is, that there are so many obstacles. So this kind of way of thinking, or the attitudes for restorative thinking, so the package of measures and the activities which are part of it, they are very good, and they've been used in practice, they work, we can see all that. But on the local government level, what I see is that we don't understand prevention the same way. So this is a big obstacle. So if you have found someone, a partner, who is speaking the same language with you, and who would like to bring this prevention programs to this community, then they are stolen by some other local government, or their career develops in a different direction. And sometimes you're back to step one, and so you start from the beginning. So to find these people who have been trained and who understand what prevention means. So this is a different topic. Talk about traffic safety and bicycle paths, and you have to wear a helmet when you're on a bike and so forth. But at school we want to have biking lessons, and every 10-year-old should have a bike, and that they would understand exactly how to ride that bike safely. So one very specific thing what to do, and not all the schools do that. But when it comes to drug prevention, it's more complicated because it doesn't have such specific programs. I can see we have more questions coming in. We talk about evidence-based programs. They're very important. So the question is that how can we get to the development of the society? As much as we contribute, is it just based on volunteering and enthusiasm, or is it going to be a top-down, institutional? How much resource are we willing to put in? When you talk about the local government level, it could be also a question of choices. Are we looking at research-based, science-based, or just guest speakers who might not have a suitable background? And we know that one-off lecture doesn't have the impact. But if you don't try out the new thing, then innovation doesn't happen, or you just get stuck in one model. And we might have a science base behind it, but science happens in different countries, in different environments, and different background systems. So today, what is working in Norway might not actually function like this in Estonia. So we are working on the science ourselves, but we would encourage you to try out new things because I have very good experience in the restorative justice for the conflict moderation and with the Social Insurance Board. They have insured us and they've involved us, and this is what we're working on for young people. And I think that the results are really good, but this is new. And if we've been stuck on the science-based, although there is science behind that as well, then we would not even know about this method. But I think it's a very good way to get young people to understand each other's feelings, and they don't have to be friends, but they have to coexist in the same environment. So I'd encourage you to be open to emotion, and let's not get stuck only in evidence or research base. If there is a research background which says it doesn't function, then we should give up. Because if going back to this sort of classical training or seminar style lecture, so you have a police talking to you, then it's been said that it doesn't work. It has zero impact. So we should trust this. So often we don't trust it because we think that we know better than the science. And I think that the personal example of adults should not be underestimated. How many adults are drinking alcohol? So what kind of role models we are for the children and the young people? Because things don't, if they can see that they can see you doing something and then you tell them not to do the same thing. So my child goes and picks up rubbish with a kindergarten class, and there was a gentleman there who was smoking and threw the smoke butt on the ground, and he said that you shouldn't do that, and this guy didn't react at all. But these are the signals to give to young people, so this is also important. And of course the science-based approach, I hope that young people are not taken to the prisons anymore to show them how horrible this place it is, and hope that they are not be break the law. But this was done for such a long time, although it didn't really have a positive impact. Yes, being a role model is important, because working at school, often you get the feeling that you have the students, you have the specialists, do something about it, because you can do this and you should have lectures. So it's good that we found out that if it's is it really prevention if it's just a lecture? So you have this kind of understanding that we send the kids to school and then things will happen there, the prevention will happen there. So it actually happens before that, before the kids get to school and at home in the evening. So everything what they can see in the environment surrounding them falls under the same category. So being at school and use of experts at school is not this magical element there, but it's the role of the entire society. Because when we have young people, we shouldn't forget the other factors as well, and every adult is a part of prevention. And if you look at the curve of prevention, one is the universal part, and then you have intervention. But Andres, I have one more thing to ask. Because if you look at the cooperation of different institutions and specialists, so how do you see this, if this cooperation is better? So at one hand, school wants to receive assistance and how we can use this resource better at school. So do we need some legal clarity here as well? So we'll have a better cooperation for the prevention and development of the community. It seems to me that if we talk about cooperation and prevention, then legal acts are not an obstacle. Because with the district police, the contact is there. And we know who the people are who are working in this region. So if we were to think that if we have a case-based approach, if we have problems, should be more specialist and see how to solve a particular case. So there aren't any big obstacles. So the question sometimes is about assuming responsibility, because one person has to be responsible. So maybe this is something we should not forget about this cooperation. So somebody decides what it is, what we do, what is the support or the assistance, what we can offer. So this is the experience for the young people themselves who've been a part of the system. So 7 or 8 people have been working with them, but they don't have an understanding that anybody will be interested in them. So the responsibility should not disappear. So one person can provide assistance and others will participate. But when it comes to legal obstacles, maybe this topic of data exchange is there, but it's very specific. So if a child needs help, then there can't be any legal obstacles for the assistance. So if we talk about the application of the programs, so you have people who are responsible at the police, local government level, or health promotion. So nobody really feels that this will be their responsibility. So I don't know the answer here. So the problem could be when it comes to the child protective services staff. So one is prevention, but the cases are more difficult, and then prevention often is secondary because they just don't have the time. If we talk about the child protection reform, then the first reading will take place in January, so hopefully we'll see some developments as well. So hopefully they will have more time to get into in depth. But cooperation and responsibility, this is what covering this. In your field, how do you decide that we will form somebody or will not form? So what is the process like from the school point of view? So on one hand, it's a very simple question because it depends on the if you have a child in danger, we provide information, that's very clear. But if we start looking at a case by case, so there could be some interesting deviations. So it depends on the capability of school as well, if the support team is there. So when there is a concern, maybe we can do a lot at school, social So you have the speech therapist, the psychologist, social therapist at school. So at some schools it works very well. But if there is no capability, so it's I look at the single cases, but now it's difficult for me to generalize this. If the child is in trouble, of course we involve child protection services. So they are the cooperation partner who help us to find which way to go. School is the main one being responsible, so we work with them. And with the child protective services, we just exchange information. For school psychologists, the main partners are physicians usually. But if you have a confidential relationship with the child, and as a school psychologist, they've asked you don't inform the parents, so this will be between us. Or your internal measurement says. So this is our ethics. So this is what we tell the child. So our confidentiality rules apply when your life is not in danger, and then this is I will have to make a decision. So teenagers say that don't tell. So this is where I feel that we have this confident relationship, and so that I have to feel my way, so that you can make some arrangement.
I started thinking about it so my experience, and we keep speaking about networking, but we haven't spoken that much about parents and families. We don't consider the family the part of the network, or we consider it the source of the problem. And in my experience, the school forces certain rules on the child, but does and seems to presume that the parent is not dealing with this issue. First, I think the school should contact the parent and say that something is wrong. I have the example of a specific child that also in the e-school environment, there is a notification that the child used the phone during break when it's not allowed, and it's a very intense intervention. The school took away the phone and put it away, but the parent, what about the parent? And then there's a second letter that your child took the phone for a second time during prohibition. But the most important part is speaking to the parent, trying to understand why the child did what they did. So choosing the intensity of the measure. This, we shouldn't forget about the parent. And earlier in the first half of the day, we spoke about stigmatization. And there we stigmatize. We think that if there is a problem with the child in the school environment, then the parent doesn't really engage with the child sufficiently. But we don't know that. There might be something else. So we need to communicate with the parent. Not all parents are careless. Yes, I wanted to say that the law, the Children's Protection Act and the Schools Act supports it, that when the specialist notices a child's need, then the parent is notified. That's the general rule, that the parent is involved. If the youth does not want the parent to be involved, then the first question should be, why not? There might be some fears there that can be mitigated with the help of the specialist, and also maybe to discuss how the parent should be notified. For example, the youth would like the psychologist to speak with the parent themselves if a child needs help. then, and it's a bigger problem, it's very complicated to do much about it without notifying the parent. You have to notify the parent sooner or later. But if the problem is clearly due to the parents, then you notify child protection services. If I may, question schools and parents need to cooperate more, but unfortunately the reality is vice versa. What to do? So Andres actually said that we shouldn't turn to the parents when there are bigger problems. Parents should be as welcome in school as they are in kindergarten, and there should be better contacts. Yes, all kinds of positive events where parents would like to participate. Through that, you can establish contact with a parent prior to any problems and issues, because everybody feels guilty when there's a problem with your child and you go like you did something bad to the school. I remember in Finland there was a closed children's facility and they had the same concern, that they were unable to get contact with the parents. And then they thought what to do. Let's organize fun family days, and it worked. They organized a fun family day, parents and children, games, pizzas and burgers and Coca-Cola's unhealthy food. Shouldn't speak about it or recommend it at a conference organized by the National Institute for Health Development, but it worked. It was fun for them. They showed up, and the teachers praised the children, how well the children are doing, and they had a positive experience. And the next time they needed to discuss a more serious event, then the parents were happier to go to school because they had this positive experience. Much more open to communicate and to hold a dialogue. I agree. There's another question. Is there evidence-based programs to help bringing parents in resolving issues? Well, yes, with REPA, there are materials for parents of what to do and the same principles, a harmonized approach, easier for children to understand. I think the National Institute for Health Development is piloting another program, so actually there are some. So turn to TAI, the National Institute for Health Development, or go to the webpage tarkvanem.ee. Yes, thank you for this addition. Making recreational activities more accessible and available. Maybe Andres wants to comment on it, but you just put together materials for the parent to support young athletes. So sports is very important. Yes, this had to do with abuse in sports. There's abuse not just in sports, but in other areas as well. But we wanted to raise parents' awareness on what they can do to make sure that the children engaging in sports or hobby clubs is safe. And on the webpage of the Chancellor of Justice, there are practical recommendations that have been put together with the help of coaches, young athletes, and professional associations. But rules and expectations should be discussed between the coach, the parents, and the child when starting the exercise. So everybody should be clear on expectations, that the child want to achieve something in sports, or do they just want to spend time there and exercise, and the coach needs to consider the wishes of the child and the family and the child need to consider the rules that apply in the exercise classes. So there are teacher-parent meetings, but there should be coach-parent meetings as well for feedbacking, and the child should also participate in this meeting. So to communicate more and to set down the expectations and rules, and the child should participate in this meeting, in this process. A SPIN program has been established so that the children who don't participate in regular hobby clubs, they can participate in spin program. There's a soccer twice a week, then once a week there's a lecture, an activity or a game to enhance their knowledge, and competitions are organized from time to time. So this is geared towards developing their social skills. The SPIN program is not quite national, but it is implemented in parts of the country. And if it's financial resources that there is interest and there is the hobby club that the child is interested in, then the parent should go to the local municipality to ask whether the municipality can support participation in the hobby club if the family is unable to pay the fees. Thank you for these thoughts. I can see that we're running out of time. And to sum up the day, there was a question as well, and we promised we will answer it at the end of the panel. Who to turn to and where do schools get assistance on prevention? And we had a specialist from TAI who said that they will answer this question. I hope that this person is amongst the audience. Yes, you are. We will bring you the microphone, and then those online will also hear us. Hello. Well, the main messages were already stated. Prevention is a broad concept, and cooperation plays an integral role. And also these one-off lectures are not a good means. We heard that already. And TAI, the National Institute for Health Development, understands that it is complicated for teachers. They have many other tasks upon their shoulders, and the workload is high. However, we can support teachers with materials to have systemic prevention, consistent prevention. As we heard before, these problems are tackled annually, consistently, and teachers are the ones who know their pupils the best. So we can help the teachers who can then carry out the preventative activities in school. Thank you. To finish with, I would like to thank everybody who on a daily basis contributes to prevention and works with children and youth. We need to speak more about prevention. This is a topic that needs to be discussed so that we're all on the same page, understand the concept the same way, and feel as individuals that we are all part of prevention as role models or through our work. Would the panelists like to add anything to finish? Smoking is not minor. It is poor behavior, and it must be dealt with immediately as soon as you notice a young people smoking. Take at least one step in trying to make them stop. I encourage schools to get the teachers together and hold a meeting with the district police officer who will speak about what the police knows. So it's the know-how we can give teachers. We can speak about the current safety issues. Once a year, invite us to schools, so then teachers have an overview and can adapt and hold a discussion with the youth and choose the approach based on their competence of how to introduce this topic. But we can give you an overview. For example, right now, quite topical is bullying teachers, not bullying pupils in school only, but also bullying against teachers, and vaping, not so much cigarettes, but vaping. We don't see as much drug use as the statistics show, and of course the police doesn't see everything. And this is what we see, so the schools can focus on these topics over the coming year. This is what we can contribute. Parents are very welcome at school as cooperation partners. And we really would in prevention to reach parents quicker and get closer to the parents. Now, maybe these meetings, not lectures, but conversations with parents on the same topics. Some schools do it. It's not widespread, but we do try to take care of our teachers. They're a very valuable resource for us. There are a few of them, and everybody is doing their best and is open to cooperation. Speak to kids. Kids want to speak. They want to speak at school and they want to speak at home. Find the time for it and speak to children more. Thank you, and this is a very good message to close our panel discussion with. Thank you.